Hello and welcome. I am Maitra Water and you are listening to my weekly podcast, What's in a Story, where I read stories from my books along with a small introduction about each. These stories are from my work as an anthropologist from across India and South Asia, and the introductions with each story helps to explain different related information about, say, maybe aspects like history, languages and literature, music, trade and economy, festivals, or facts about archaeology, and many other things which are all important to understand or get a meaning or a context of a story. In this second season, we will listen specially to narratives of and about water bodies from Asia, and this will include stories from the smallest of water bodies like wells or small ponds to lakes, rivers, or the sea and the ocean. Let's listen to today's episode in season 2 of What's in a Story. About today's story. The title of today's story is The Tidal Bore of River Indus and Alexander's Last Trip Down the River. Alexander III of Macedon, most commonly known as Alexander the Great, was a king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. He succeeded his father, Philip II, to the throne in 336 BCE at the age of 20 and spent most of his ruling years conducting lengthy military campaigns throughout Western Asia, Central Asia, parts of South Asia and Egypt. And by the age of 30 had expanded his kingdom, which stretched from Greece to the northwestern parts of India. Today's story is from his invasion of India in 325 BCE, and this is variously noted by historian Arian, who accompanied him, and this story is about the tidal bore which the Greek fleets encountered in the river Indus, completely alarming everyone and also killing many soldiers in the process. This incident is mentioned in Arian's book, The Anabasis of Alexander, later on translated by E.J. Chinnock, and this is in book 6, spanning across chapters 19 and 20, titled The Voyage Down the Indus into the Sea. This incident is also referred by historian Quintus Curtius later on in around 50 CE in his book History of the Life and Reign of Alexander the Great, which speaks of the voyage of Alexander down the river from Patala to the ocean, that is the Indian Ocean, which included the Arabian Sea in those times, giving a vivid description of the tidal bore in the Indus as they approached the ocean. Now, to understand this, let's look a little at the nature of the Indus River in respect to water, climate, rise and fall of the water levels during different types of times of the year, followed by a little understanding of what exactly is a tidal bore. The river Indus, the main stream of the Indus, the water level is at its lowest from mid-December to mid-February. After that, the river starts rising, slowly at first and then more rapidly at the end of March. The high water level usually takes place between mid-July and mid-August during the monsoon times, the southwest or the summer monsoon times. The river then falls rapidly until the beginning of October, when the water level subsides more gradually. There is also considerable physiographic and historical evidence that speaks that across since 4,500 years ago, the Indus from southern Punjab province to the sea has been shifting its course. It is confined between limestone ridges at Rohri in Sindh, but thereafter it has wandered, shifting generally to the west, particularly in its delta. In northern Sindh, the Indus has shifted westward a distance of about 10 to 20 miles, that is around 16 to 32 kilometers, in the last 7 centuries alone. The river is now held back to some extent by higher ground from Shehwan to Thatta at the head of the delta, but the possibility of future shifting also cannot be ruled out. There is also evidence of the shifting of the various other tributaries of the Indus, including Chenab, Ravi, Bias and Satluj, during the historical period. Now, what is then a tidal bow? Also known as just or often referred to as just a bow in many colonial records. To understand this, let's look at tides, which are basically the rise and fall of sea levels caused by the combined effects of the gravitational forces exerted by the moon and, to a much lesser extent, the sun, and are also caused by the earth and moon orbiting one another. Now, when we mention a tidal bow, it's a phenomena in which the leading edge of the incoming tide forms a wave or waves or water that travels up a river or a narrow bay, reversing the direction of the river or the bay's current. It is a very strong tide that pushes up the river against the current, and it almost looks like the river suddenly starts flowing in the opposite direction with a huge surging wave several feet in height suddenly moving towards you. Two key features of a tidal bore are the intense turbulence and turbulent mixing generated during the bore propagation, as well as its very tremendously large rumbling noise. The visual observations of tidal bores highlight the turbulent nature of the surging waters. Tidal bores have been observed on all continents excepting Antarctica. However, many of these have been modified by navigational improvements such that the bores have been completely eliminated or significantly reduced in present times. Since Alexander's time, about 80 tidal bores have been recorded and discovered in different rivers and estuaries around the world, and the largest of these took place on the Qiangtang River in southeast China, first noted in 7th century BC. And this is also because of the mightiness of this specific phenomena of the Chinese river, is also referred to as the Qiangtan dragon. There are other famous tidal bores recorded from different other rivers, including the ones in the Brazilian rivers, including the Amazon and the Araguaia, the Hooghly in the Bengal region of India, the arms of the Bay of Fundy in Canada, several locations in the United Kingdom, and the Seine in France. A description of a few of these bores follows from a publication called Half Hours in the Deep, though no precise publication date is given, but it generally stems from the last quarter of the 19th century, around 1880. For anyone interested, one can definitely find more about it on the net. There are also various records from British colonial times in India which mention the tidal bore of the Hooghly River of the Bengal region, like the one mentioned by James Rennell, which speaks about the height of the waves to be 6 feet in height. But in comparison to the mention of the Chinese bore from the Kyangtan, this is basically nothing because it's mentioned to be even mightier, more fearful. Today's story is about this fearsome surging reverse current which took Alexander's fleets by surprise, destroying many ships and killing many in the process. However, a major part of the fleets were lucky enough to stay alive and survive the situation, and a lucky reverse tide pushed them back towards the ocean, which is the Indian Ocean, thus helping the fleets to sail back towards their homeland. It also needs to be mentioned that it is often discussed that whether what the Greek historians mentioned was really a tidal bore or it was merely a very severe storm, a river storm, which completely took them by surprise, because they were generally used to the much more calm and a very different weather of the Mediterranean region, so they were not able to bring themselves to face the very adverse situations arising out of probably a very severe storm in the river. However, certain details within the accounts specifically points to the fact also that probably that the storm which is mentioned and the incidents taking place which are mentioned within the account point to the fact that indeed it was a tidal bore that the fleets encountered that fateful night in October in 325 BCE. It also needs to be mentioned that tidal bores have not been recorded from the Indus in recent years, and they have also not been recorded from many of the other rivers which I mentioned earlier. I read this story about the tidal bore of river Indus and the last trip of Alexander from my research paper titled Water Narratives of South Asia from 2020. Follows the story. The story, the tidal bore of the river Indus and the last trip of Alexander. In July 325 BCE, Alexander stood on the banks of the Indus River in western ancient India. as the most powerful man in the world. 8 years and 3,000 miles earlier, Alexander's army had left his home in Macedonia near the shores of the Mediterranean Sea and fought its way through Asia. His military conquests had just culminated in the defeat of the army of King Porus and his terrifying elephants. Though victorious once again, Alexander's army was exhausted, and they had been especially shaken by the Indian elephants in their last battle. They were, in fact, on the verge of mutiny, and Alexander had finally decided to return home. But before he began his return journey to Macedonia, he wanted to do some final exploration. For Alexander had acquired from his teacher Aristotle and his other teachers a curiosity about the world and about nature and a desire to explore and learn from them. Standing there in the city of Patala, to note, presently in Pakistan. Back to the story. And looking at the waters of the Indus, Alexander could never have guessed what nature had in store for him, that the tide moving up the Indus River would be more of a threat to him than all the armies of Egypt, Persia, Tyre, and India. After rowing for several days down the western branch of the Indus, Alexander decided to moor his vessels at an island in the middle of the river and let his men separate into parties to forage. Then suddenly, to everyone's shock, the river began to flow backwards. The water that now was furiously flowing up the river smelled of the sea. But then an even bigger and truly frightening surprise took place. A turbulent and thunderous wall of water came barreling up the river at them. A single steep breaking wave crest covering the entire width of the river and sounding like a herd of the Indian elephants that they had just fought, crashed into their ships and flooded the land. Having never seen anything like it, the Macedonians, and I'm quoting Arian here, thought they were witnessing prodigies and signs of heaven's displeasure. The ships were lifted violently by the wave, many of them crashing into each other. The rising waters quickly inundated all the surrounding shores, leaving only the tops of knolls like little islands to which some of the men desperately swam. But then, just as suddenly, the waters began to withdraw. The receding waters now violently drained the previously flooded areas of land, leaving shipwrecks on dry land and the fields strewn with baggage, arms, pieces of oars, loose planks, and some types of sea life that the Macedonians looked like terrifying monsters. Alexander would have had no way of knowing that the turbulent wall of water that raced up the Indus River from the sea was a tidal bore. He was most likely unaware of even more ordinary tides having come from the region around the Mediterranean Sea, which I had mentioned earlier, which has such a small tide that it is unnoticeable. Yet, Alexander worried that another wave might come soon. So, as night approached, Alexander sent horsemen down river to provide a warning in case another wall of water attacked them. His men began repairing the ships, all the while listening for the roar of a wall of water. After a while, about 12.5 hours after the first wave had come, they heard the hoof beats of racing horses. The horsemen were riding as fast as they could, trying to stay ahead of another approaching wave. Luckily, this time the moving wall of water was not as large, and I once again specifically quote Arion, the shore and banks rang with cheers from the soldiers and sailors as they welcomed their unexpected rescue with exuberant joy. Unquote. Thus, the fleets of Alexander were thrown back into the Indian Ocean, from where they started to swim up back towards their homeland.